here are Cyber One Solutions East and West Africa. So from the top, Cyber One is, can I say, our mother company. We are under the umbrella of Cyber One. So from a global perspective, we are 26 years old and in 12 locations globally. We have 3 segments, operational segments. One of the segments is Trinexia. Trinexia is our value-added distribution that cuts across UK, Africa, Europe, India, Pakistan. That's Trinexia. It's a value-added distribution. We have a value-added reseller, ourselves here, East Africa and West, Cyber One Solutions. Then we are in Africa, Europe, as well as it's called what? Middle East. And then we have one of our last segments, which is a CSOC, Security Operational Center, which now covers the global aspect of things. So what is the Cyber One mission? Our mission as Cyber One, cascading all down to these other segments, is we want to deliver innovative resilience to you guys. Yeah. And cutting across that mission, we have also our vision. And our vision is very, very clear. Then it also is just to create resilience around the security in your environment as our customers. We don't want to come here and start selling you guys tools and we don't understand you. So if you see Andrew's left hand on the t-shirt, it's written quality engagement. So that is our theme for the year. And we want to have quality and really, really deep conversations around cybersecurity.
Many times when we call for such events, it's normally directed just from the front, which is we talk, you listen, and we go back and we try and remember what was said. But the reason why we called for this roundtable is we just want, our part here is to facilitate a conversation amongst ourselves. Why is this important? If we look at some of the conversations we normally have, the number of meetings we normally attend from vendors and so forth, are there times you ask yourself, are these guys coming to see me because they understand what I'm actually trying to achieve, or are they just trying to push a quota? They have numbers they need to meet. So that's why they'll come up with very nice creative marketing ideas and label products and label technology trends and then come and force them down our throat. And the truth is, yes, also in the business we are in, it's also a business. And there are times that you find resellers, vendors, and so forth will be more geared on pushing a particular set of technology because that's what, from the circles, has been said to be the trend of the season. But when we really think about cybersecurity as a core aspect of our business, that really shouldn't be the approach. And how else can we also improve in cybersecurity? Being able to learn from each other. Being able to take on something and we chew on that bone. We hear ideas. We get to know how the people across the room from me handling some of these problems that I have faced. And we thought to ourselves, if we can foster such an environment, how beneficial would that be? And we think that it's going to be pretty beneficial for everyone. It's one thing, they normally say that a problem discussed or a problem shared is a problem half solved. If you got to realize that whatever you're dealing with is not so unique, that there are other people who are probably dealing with the same thing or have dealt with and found solutions. it goes a long way into helping even in the future, because there's really nothing new under the sun, truly. Whatever we are doing today, whatever you're going through today, someone has been there. Someone has walked that journey. And let us share the journeys. So what does that mean? That means that I'll be engaging the room a lot. I'll be calling on us to engage in an active and live conversation. We shall keep the topics not technically heavy, okay? So that we can understand in breadth and in depth without having to go into technical. Cybersecurity is not something that is now just a component that hangs on the side, that we have the whole business agenda and then we've locked up cybersecurity in another room that we can come back to. Movement of people and goods, especially last mile movement, was primarily horse and carriage, right? And that carried on for a bit. And then I think it was in the 1800s, if I'm not wrong, that we started seeing development in the automotive industry. And we saw the success of things like the Ford T18 model and so forth. And what did that do to that industry that was before? Complete revolution, right? Horse and carriages, the guys who had invested heavily. I don't want to imagine the guys who had a board meeting a few years prior to the first Ford being released. And in the board meeting, they were like, yeah, we need to breed faster horses, and we need to create our carriages with better dynamics so that we can have comfort. And then here's Henry Ford. Then we've seen the progression of that. There hasn't been much transformation in at least 100, 200 years since then. Everything was pretty much just improvements, steady improvements on how do we make the vehicles faster? How do we make the vehicles safer? How do we make the vehicles more efficient and so forth? Fast forward into the 2000s, we start seeing electrical vehicles, right? Hybrid here and there. And that might have been a very huge leap, it might seem, but that was also just an improvement, an evolution of what was there. Then here we are with the likes of Tesla. What's the difference between what we're looking at today, the Teslas and the likes? What's the difference between that and what was there previous? Is Tesla and the likes of the Teslas, are they an evolvement of, is there such a word? There is. It is today. It is today. Are there an evolution in the, is it just an evolution in the industry? Or can we now say that there has been a revolution in the industry? Evolution? Revolution. Why are we saying revolution? What makes the huge difference?
It's what Tesla has been built on. It's the continuous improvement of a certain technology that was used, from the agrarian revolution, what we were taught in high school, to what it is today. So it's just a continuous improvement. Yeah.
I read somewhere that, let me surprise you, we've talked of the 1800s. Electrical engines for motor vehicles were actually developed before diesel engines. They just weren't popular. Yes, let that sink in. So what makes it a revolution? It is not in the engineering. It is the fact that today, when you take a vehicle like a Tesla and its likes, with a software update, you can actually change a large part of the functionality of that car. That vehicle is not just a car, but it's now a software platform. That is what changes everything. Before, everything was about the mechanics when it comes to the automotive industry. Right now, what are we looking at in the automotive industry? Autonomous driving, right? And they're trying to push in terms of compliance and safety regulations as much as possible so that in the future we can actually have self-driving cars. How does a vehicle become self-driving? It's software, it's ML, it's AI, right? That's what we're injecting into the vehicles. And that's what makes it a revolution. We've now crossed from, it's not just computerization where the machine is telling you its error codes and all that, but something that can actually function on itself using technology. Where am I leading to? Technology is the fabric of business. And back to the room again. If we think about the different changes that have been in the motor vehicle industry, and right now we think about the different industries we are in. Right here on this table there is fintech and there's also banking. What has been the different change? What has been the evolution of your industry today? And are we at a point of revolution? Are you one of the guys who've already led the way from a revolution perspective by properly injecting digital transformation? And we can get into a quick conversation also on what that is because we've been using it a lot. Or are you still at the evolution phase where you're still trying to figure out what comes after this? Where are we?
Processes which are being automated. So, and you see with automation, you don't need somebody to work 7 to 5, so it works anytime. That's where the mobile banking comes in. So it improves the touch, security, and all those things.
Said yes, as you remember, M-Pesa was initially a sort of platform where you could just send money home. Generally, what we have seen now is that we can be able to do payments, connect to businesses, plan customer behavior, and develop more solutions for the customer from that.
Currently, we are moving from brick and mortar kind of business. And right now, we are integrating with fintechs and telcos. We are not only relying on the bank. The bank is not only relying on its staff. So we've come up with processes whereby we try and come with innovative products. I think Safaricom, even more than Safaricom, we have Cellulant, money remittances, whereby now you can send money from Europe to maybe to Kenya. So yes, it is playing a very big role.
Okay. Cybersecurity is the fabric of technology, right? Because you cannot decouple the two. Cybersecurity and technology, cybersecurity has to be a foundation and has always been a foundation of technology. The question that I'll now bring back again is, if this being the case, is cybersecurity a fabric of our business? Because here's what we have observed over the years. When it comes to how business has been done before, for quite a long time, you'll find even cybersecurity has been relegated to a very small spot, even in decision making. Okay? And here I'm not even talking from a governance perspective. I'm talking of decision making in the IT department. cybersecurity has been the last one in the room. It's let's cover everything, and then when we have an audit coming up, we ask ourselves, where are we missing in terms of the security gaps? That has been, by and large, the approach that has been across the world, actually. As high as the demand might seem, what has been the response? Have we had strategic active response where we go ahead and have security in place, or are we still reacting? Is our response still very reactive in what we do? And here's where I want us to spend a bit more time. If we see that cybersecurity has been relegated to the last spot, the first question that comes to mind for me when we think about security, there are many threes that we play around with. The first group of threes we talk about in security has always been the CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But when it comes to the operationalization of security, there's another three that we talk about: the people, process, and technology. And I want us to look at the first two, people and process. And when we go back and think about our organizations today, let us talk about it from a cultural perspective. Culture is one thing that exists by default. You either have a strong, positive culture, all right, or even the lack of it is still a defined culture. And when we talk about culture, what am I talking about? Here we're talking about the beliefs we hold. We are talking about the behaviors and the habits, and basically the norms and understanding of what we do. Now, thinking back to organizations, if we might put back our hats on, take a quick snapshot of what you believe the cybersecurity culture is. And we're going to do it in the inverse. If you're to walk in, for those with branch offices, all of us here have quite a sizable staff number and so forth. If you're to randomly pick 3 to 10 people, what can they tell you about cybersecurity in relation to your institution today? What is their understanding? If you think now higher, let's talk of executive leadership, let's talk of board. What is the cybersecurity culture understanding in your boards today? If we look at any basic society, culture is shaped from the top. The top is what sets the tone in any society. And if we're talking of pushing or enabling cybersecurity culture in organizations, and it's not existent at the top, then we'll find ourselves doing so many initiatives, and they all fail. What has this pushed most of us to do? In the PPT, that has pushed us to focus on the T. Because at least if we're talking technology, my fight there is budget, right? My fight is budget. I don't have to have a difficult conversation, okay? And the thing about budget, unfortunately for that fight, it's never available, it's never enough. True. So what does that do? It puts us in a reactive position where we are always playing catch up, where we are always responding just to crisis. Okay? So, if we're going to talk about culture, let me bring an easier conversation. It's called mindset. When you talk about mindset, there's a book that was written by Carol Dewar, if I'm not wrong, Carol Dewar or Dewayne, and it's called Mindset. And in this book, Carol talks about two key mindsets that exist. Okay? The first mindset that she talks about is the fixed mindset, the black and white. The second mindset she talks about is the growth mindset. And she makes a very difficult statement when she talks about fixed mindset. She says that the corporate workplace pushes us or promotes a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is where things are black or white. This is where it is focused purely on skill. Okay? What does a fixed mindset do? A fixed mindset assumes that I already know. I already know. Right? And if I already know, then failure is not an option. It should not happen. We should not suffer a breach. Why? Why are we suffering a breach and we've had the best people? Don't we have the best skills? Don't we have the best technology as advised by IT? So why are we suffering a breach? Then there's the growth mindset. The growth mindset comes from a place of practice and learning. One is purely from a place of skill and knowledge. I already know, and I have the best skill. So why doesn't it work? So keep pushing and getting things done. We don't care. The other one comes from a place of practice and learning. It comes with the mentality of, what can I learn from my last experience? If this happened to me, what can I learn from it? Where are we going next? What do we need to do? And I want to bring it back to the room and ask, do you think the organizations are at a fixed mindset? Or do we think we have growth mindsets when it comes to security in organizations?
For the organization that have worked, leave alone this current, I think I've worked in organizations that I can say they have a growth mindset. And I can say I'm a beneficiary because, like you put it, yes, you have the skill, but don't just stamp and say that you know it all. You need to have an open mind. I've always have an open mind, and I've always tried to listen and accommodate what other partners are doing, so that we can be able to create or to offer a better service to our customers. And like you are putting it, currently our organization has a growth mindset because the path that we've taken as a bank by integrating with telcos and fintechs, it's a clear indication that as much as we have people who have skill, then we need also to onboard technology or third parties who are going to also help our customers have a good customer experience. Now, through technology, I think I can confidently say we are growing because of that. And putting all these, we also try to put all these solutions in place, cybersecurity. And there's some pillars that we've also tried to follow. Okay. Factoring like now assessing and advise, protect and prevent. And this has also helped us because you'll find that when it comes to assess and advise, as much as possible, we're also being guided by the Central Bank of Kenya. We're also trying to follow the cyber security guideline solution framework. Yes, we have external auditors who come and assess our systems. Yes, it has been an uphill task trying to explain to them. We always fight, that one is known. But having an open mind and accepting some of the observations and the recommendations has helped us in having good products. And also these now also, when these reports are also shared by the board members, they also appreciate and also know the status of the current technology. Because I normally believe that so long as I have advised you and you did not follow my advice, I have done my part as per my technical know-how and as per my research. It may not be in the book, but according to my experience. Okay, so it is just a matter of having an open mind and growth.
First, I think cyber has evolved in many ways, so it's no longer fixed. And I would quickly think of two ways. One is how we work. Previously, cyber was kind of a waterfall-based model, where we would look at a project plan and say, this is the gate, we'll find cyber here. When you get here and you've not done everything, go back to where you started. But now we've changed the way we're working. Cyber is now adopting Agile, so that we work with the project teams from the beginning, from the time you're sourcing to the end. Yeah. So that is one way that has changed cyber from being a fixed mind to an evolved mindset. Another way I would think of is how we used to perceive cyber. Previously, it used to be a cost center, and leaders in cyber never used to think that cyber can actually be a revenue center. Yeah, people in cyber are now thinking of commercializing cyber. So when we now no longer have just cyber technology leaders, we have business leaders who are leading technology. So in the end, that's an evolution, and so that comes to this table and all the tables.
Cyber has also always been seen as a blocker by the business, but also trying to get the business buy in what cybersecurity is bringing on the table, and making the business understand the risks that are within us has brought us a long way to making the business understand us not as a blocker.
I think over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a shift in terms of the board discussions. Now you'll hear board members ask about, have you cleared the VAPT report? Have you been able to address all of the weaknesses that you have? But I also recall one of the comments that one of our directors mentioned. He said that we needed to protect our customers even though they did not want to be protected. And you were talking about the people element. When we look at the threat landscape today, people are still giving their passwords out, people are still giving the OTPs out, and we are doing a lot of work in terms of educating the customer to put them at the forefront of what they are exposing themselves for. And that's where I think we have a bit of a problem. We may, as an industry, be very much aware of the risks that we have. Our board members are very much aware, and more so. And I corroborate what my colleagues from M-Pesa said. Today, when we work on a project or a product that has to be released, the cybersecurity component comes in at around 30% of the cost. So from the outset, we are investing in terms of protection aspect, as well as making sure that we test out our systems before we're able to release the product to the market. The problem still remains on the people side. I believe that's the thing that we have noted, whether be it in terms of our own staff, in certain cases, leaking information or knowing where the vulnerabilities are and leaking that to market. And I think that's something that we see more and more in the market in Kenya here. And the second one is the end customer. So I think these are the two areas which we need to also be very conversant with and understand and address.
Fine, we can have all these cool data products and solutions and everything, but how does cyber come into the picture? To most people, those are two separate things, but where we stand is you cannot separate those two things. Today, the world is being driven by data. Everyone wants to protect the data they have, and any opportunity they can get to own that and monetize it becomes something. So how then do they come to protect that? And I totally agree with you. It really lies with the people, both internally and the customers that you get to work with. Do they really understand whenever they come through different technology solutions that they can get their hands on? Do they know what are the risks that come with those technology solutions they have, but also how can they be aware of those risks so that they know how to mitigate them, but also know how to handle something when it comes up in their hands? In most cases, that has been left to the IT team to be able to take care of that. People leave organizations, other people join. Is there continuous awareness around security within organizations that is still happening? So at the core of it, cyber has become to be more of a growth thing because technology changes every day and cyber grows. And anyone that considers themselves a black hat person, they will always find new ways to be able to test how secure are you. So have we trained our people enough for them to be able to know when I see something that is trying to imitate someone else, then maybe I should report that to someone to look into it, or there are some actions I need to take. So we need to start internally and educate our people on how to handle cyber, or do they even know what to do? Is that a conversation that we're continuously having? You mentioned culture. It is something that should be at the top on the list whenever anyone talks about technology or innovation. You cannot talk innovation if you're not talking how you're going to protect that innovation, how you're protecting the people that are using that innovation. Because today, anyone has your data, they can use it for anything, and you'll find yourself in big trouble. So it's really more of a growth mindset because innovations are coming up every day, technology is changing. So we should look at it as a growth mindset and not more of something that is of the past.
Businesses have started understanding the need for cyber. Why am I saying this? It's because they understand that if I don't protect my business, if I don't secure my business, I'll suffer financial losses. My reputation will go down and probably close down. So with that in mind, we see that cyber has now a growth mindset because businesses now want to produce products that are secure by design. Yeah? They want to ensure how do we keep our product secure. They tap into those people who are knowledgeable, people who are the black hats, they turn them into white hats by inviting them to find the vulnerabilities and we pay you, you know. So it's the other way around now that is making the cyber to be a growth mindset.
One thing we have seen is competitive advantages pushing companies to have a growth mindset, some. And in this case, why I say that is you have seen company A, company X has deployed a certain solution. So you feel like because of the competitive advantage, you have to deploy that particular technology. So this has led into a technological advancement because companies look at convenience. So they tell you you have to deploy this because it's customer facing, so it's pushing into convenience for the customer. But now they compromise security. Then later on they come and say, we have to look at a better way of protecting the solution. So you see, at the end of the day, the solution, the security aspect become an afterthought of that process. So we first of all think of solution from a functional point of view, but as we are designing this solution, we are not building security in it. And that's why you see, yes, you'll deploy solutions, but at the end of the day, this solution will be compromised. We have, quite a number of API attacks that are happening. If it was security by design, then that would not have happened. So another thing is, you look at it from also, we have a challenge of budget constraints. So we deploy a solution to be customer convenient. Then later on, when you come and look at the security that you have to deploy around that particular application, then it brings a bit of frictions between the business unit and the regulation. So it is, yes, a growth mindset, but it's a forced growth mindset because we start now going for patches, which I appreciate actually what you guys are doing, start to understand what customers are facing. So now, rather than us going for solutions, we're going for products because of compliance. Then, you have a firewall, but 2 weeks after that, you've been compromised. So it is a mixed thing that the industry is facing, a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And for me, I feel like it's a forced growth mindset, not a planned mindset from the business unit.
The other thing that probably most guys have already talked about, but I would like just to add something based on what I've observed probably from the financial industry, especially where I work. Ideally, you find that initially the conversation was what are some of the controls that are being put in place, but right now you are seeing the business actually looking at embracing the fact that it's not about the how, but when it happens. So we are having conversations around cyber insurance and also like what you guys are doing with regards to your vision on resiliency. So we are actually seeing business actually right now looking at if today we are actually breached, then how do we survive that? Or what measures have we put in place to ensure that actually we survive the cyber attack? And I think this has been fastened because initially, probably 2 to 3 years ago, things such as ransomware were stuff that were only heard of in Europe and all that. But right now we are seeing from within, actually it's hitting close. We're having businesses being disrupted. So I believe also the conversation is actually shifting on the side of resilience.
We normally are there when it comes to integrations. And there's a time we were to integrate with, there's an application, Nairobi City Council, I've forgotten its name, JamboPay. I think, yeah, JamboPay. So by following some of our fintech and telco framework, that's when I came now to appreciate now solution delivery process. So you see some developers, somebody has a very nice idea, but now he's doing everything. He's the developer, he's the one doing SITs, he's the one doing UATs, he's the one doing quality assurance, doing pilot. So now I realized, I asked myself, are these the right people to integrate with? As much as possible, we want to push numbers for the bank. Now, when you enter into that room, there is no biometric. When you enter that room, everyone is seated in the same room. So I realized I don't need a software to protect my network. This is where security starts. The way you say people and processes. So, and that's where now, to me, is a skill. Now once and skill, and then now you focus on the governance. So I realized I was with, we were with a gentleman from Lagos that had come to conduct a due diligence. Now I realized that these are sector, or these are people who need guidance, so that as much as possible they are coming up with this solution and they are deploying through the industry or to the government, they need to be advised. Because if you come and deploy such kind, if I do a due diligence and you're from the business and you're pushing me, I need to integrate this person, that even if the MD comes and tells me, I don't agree. I don't normally agree. Because when things go haywire, the MD will come after you, me. Yes. And it was by good luck, our internal control, they didn't agree and we didn't integrate with those guys. You get? So you might find that you have developers, solutions, fintechs. There are APIs on the public. Now it is you or us manning the IT. You need to give advice and ask them, please expose this API through layer 2 VPN, through layer 3 VPN. Because I've come in instances whereby somebody tells you, like yesterday, Cellulant, they were telling me, oh no, our API is on the public. But I told them, we've signed an NDA. We need to expose this thing on the VPN. Otherwise, please, I'm not going to integrate these solutions. And that's it, you get. So it's something that we need also to enlighten especially the fintechs and the developers, because we've been hit so many times and the business don't normally understand. Because when the fraud and investigation team comes, it is normally a warfare. It is normally a warfare. And the buck normally stops with the IT guys, not even the MD. And that's where now, to me, the skill comes in. If you don't know how to protect the Cisco switches, the Huawei, you are running D-Links.
The first is, yes, there is, to some good level, adoption of cybersecurity awareness within the organization. But I'm also still seeing some alignment. Even where there's some adoption at the top, it's still heavily aligned down through the pipe that is called IT and security, right? And that's why we still have, on the outskirts, we still have the user challenge when it comes to the users. And we've talked about awareness and the users not having awareness, but I also want to bring it back to us. I mean, all these different industries represented, what's our awareness? What are the cyber risks that are top of our priority or ranking on the top of our list, dependent on the industries we are in and our market?
So a bit of the outlier on the manufacturing space, and I think before even I talk about what I think what are the top risk areas, and I think all of us, I mean, we pretty know what are the risk areas in our environment. I think what you've said is very important. That cybersecurity and the awareness, it seems to be running down the IT pipe, not at the user end. And what I've realized is, over time, because of the digitization of multiple business elements now, the cloud environments, we on probably Office 365, we are adopting certain new technologies, mobile-related technologies. You realize at the top, there's quite a bit of knowledge as far as cybersecurity is concerned. In most cases, you realize your board has some sense of awareness now. Your CEO, I mean, in my case, my CEO will call me and tell me how resilient are we as far as ransomware is concerned. It's probably because he had a golfing session and one of the other CEOs said he was hit and they had, they needed to pay some 10 million shillings or whatever it is. But those conversations are happening at the top. The challenge, for example, in our environment is the structure of our staffing setup. So, for example, we have only 30% employees who are office-based employees. And I'm looking at organizations like security companies and certain other companies that have shop floor environments. So you have this huge layer of employees. We've brought them on board. We've been on a digital transformation journey ourselves, and we've brought shop floor workers into the digital space. We've given them smartphones, for example. We've linked them to certain spaces where they're engaging with IT, systems. But the question is, so how do you message a cybersecurity risk issue or conversation with that group of guys at that level? And maybe one of the takeaways I will want to mention to most of the people is, I think one is appreciating the space of the human being or the complexity of the human person, working very closely with teams like the learning and training teams, the employee engagement teams, and the HR teams, that HR space. You realize actually how complex it is because people come in with their own intentions, with their own goals. Cybersecurity is not really at the front of their mind. The motivation is probably, the salary at the end, or somebody is demotivated for many other reasons. And in that setup, you still want to bring on board a conversation on cybersecurity. So you need to find an exciting way of creating conversations around cybersecurity, whether it means, putting in a messaging that, if you call people in, or we call them barazas in some cases. For us, we even call them cybersecurity barazas. When you go on the shop floor and call it a baraza, somebody identifies with that. And you don't only talk about cybersecurity, that discussion is mixed with certain other conversations relating to the employee engagement in the digital space. So it doesn't really become a cybersecurity conversation. It's more about your engagement with the digital space, how it's beneficial to you, and at the same, while talking about the benefit, then you bring about the risks around that. It tends to work better, and we've seen that working very well in the organization. The other part is because we're in multiple countries in Africa, now we also have to change into different languages. For example, we have a theme every year, and it's in different languages. So we have it in Zulu. If we have a company in Tanzania, so we put it in Swahili, and that seems to resonate better with the teams there. Now, as far as your last question, where you talked about the risk areas for us, we've fully adopted cloud as a company. We've been on a journey over the last 3-4 years. So I think elements around ransomware attacks is at the top of our minds at the moment. We are not. So we've had a conversation, for example, with my CEO, and what he says is, for us, we are not in the banking sector, so I don't care too much about sensitivity of data. I said, I agree with you, and he understands, he knows where he sits. So he says, for me, the business going to a standstill because our central ERP environment is unavailable to the business. We cannot transact, so we cannot turn around, the revenues stop. Those are critical issues. I think the other part from a manufacturing point is operational technologies. We're on that space of adopting, so the risks are growing on that front, not as fast as on the other space, but we know that the future is, so we are now looking at where we have plugged into factory systems and how best we can, as we grow in that setup, how we can put in cybersecurity at the front. So it's a conversation, it's a journey, but it's not as easy. It's a very easy conversation to have within cybersecurity space with cybersecurity experts, but let's understand the human element and understand how difficult it is to drive that conversation.
Like when you look at material out there about driving cultural change or driving a change in human habit and behavior, we all hope when we're doing some of these things that we can speak to the rational person, but that's not how human beings work. There's I'll remember the author, but he gave a very good illustration when it comes to dealing with humans, dealing with people. And he said that as people have two key areas. There's the rational part of you. Then there's the emotional part of you, okay? And many times when we are trying to push objectives that people need to follow, how do we structure them? How do we structure our messaging? It's to the rational, right? And I like the illustration that he gave. He gave the illustration of, this is you trying to change a behavior. Picture a person who has human qualities on an elephant. Also, the elephant is non-binary. And there's the person trying to steer the elephant, and there's the path. Those three factors are very important. Now, in this case, you'll find that the person steering the elephant, that is the rational person, okay? This elephant, the big elephant, is the emotive, the emotional aspect. You can motivate the rational, but if this elephant has decided it doesn't feel like moving, you'll need to come up with different motivations to get the elephant going. Because the rational can only steer if the elephant wants to move. But there's the last bit, which is the path. And this is where now our vision, our missioning, and so forth, have they bought into that? The elephant can be motivated to walk down a path. The person can be skilled enough and knowledgeable enough to steer it down a path. But trust me, if the elephant sees that the path is steep downwards, and it knows that there's the risk of an injury or a fall, it will not go down. So the big homework that we have is to see, like you've well put it, the messaging, the delivery of the messaging in terms of the importance of cybersecurity, in terms of digital transformation. Because you see, all these things are fabrics of each other. How do we message it such that our path is clear, okay? Our elephant has been addressed, and the rational person also knows what to do in order to steer it down the path. That is where the actual hard work is. And I'll put it this way. If we deal with the people aspect in security, we'll actually have covered the largest chunk when it comes to dealing with cybersecurity incidents. Why am I saying this? We have said for a long time that people are the weakest link in security. They're not the weakest link. They are the target. If a black hat hacker is trying to get access to passwords, if they're trying to get access to your APIs, what are they really targeting? If you look at cloud risks, what's the biggest risk in the cloud? It's misconfiguration. So who are they trying to exploit? The weakness that this person might have that will show itself in the system, right? If you look at ransomware and before it does the last steps in terms of being able to capture the passwords and everything so that you can have your escalation privileges and so forth, what is being exploited there? It's the weakness that the human person might have had in the system. So are they the weakest link? No, they are the attack vector. That's what the people want at the end of the day. That's what the attacks are leading to. So now it comes back to us, and I like the conversations we've had. And there is adoption. And just to help us, there's the next word which I'll just put without going too much into it, which is the adaptation. Yes, we've created an awareness. We have some awareness, and we want to drive the awareness. It is good to have a guide. And this is now where adaptation of standards, they could be based on your industry. They could be based just purely on cybersecurity in hygiene in general health. And this is now where we take the conversation to the next level and we say, we want to create a cybersecurity maturity model. We want a mature cybersecurity map, okay, and program. And this framework is one of the frameworks that we've seen that we'd like to adapt to be our guide. There are things that we can pick up from this framework to be our guide to have that mature program. Because once you have that in place and it's understood all the way from the top, it becomes very easy because now it's easy to follow a maturity plan. And you know, we are trying to get to this place. Budgets might be prohibiting, or even staff might be prohibiting, or different things depending on where your particular business is. But this is how we'll achieve. We'll take these steps, you know, in this financial year, what are we trying to achieve? So that we're not just reactive. Yes, there's a time we'll have to react because we can't cover all our bases, but are we able to pivot back to a proactive place? And now adaptation of frameworks and having programs in place that the organization is able to adapt from the top and trickle down is now where we need to put in really a lot of work. But before I close off, there's something that I don't want to leave hanging. Amrit, you said something that I believe I'm not the only one who wants to know the secrets that you are able to pull. We want to learn from you. How are you guys able to extract 30% of dedicated to security of the cost of of the technology investment, please? I don't think I'm the only one in the room who wants to know that, right? So we'd love to hear from that even as we close.
Once you have a very hard time being hit by a cyber incident, then your directors become very conversant with that. And obviously, once the insurance comes into play, and the responsibility of the directors also, because they do have a fiduciary responsibility towards making sure that the business is protecting the customers' money, they get to be very aware of this, and they will dedicate the funds.
So for us, I think it was a challenge getting to implement some of the security solutions to protect our systems and the data and, of course, our customers. But when the organization hears that so-and-so has been hit, and then now people at that point now, even the management, now they're saying, are we safe? And then now they start asking, where are we in terms of security? And then now, at least you see things moving. So I think that has really helped us.
The central bank issues a quarterly report on all of the banks that have been hit, because you have to report. So it's not a secret. And some of the larger banks are very heavily hit. So I think that's what we have to realize. The second thing I wanted to maybe suggest, because you have the cybersecurity platform here, it would be to have a kind of a communication link across banks, because that's the only way we'll be able to fight it as an industry. If we're able to have that type of a network between us, where we say, look, this is what I've noted, be careful on that front. It's not after the event, it is also preventive, that we would be able to do something as an industry and protect our customers.
We've even had conversations even with the central bank. I wasn't supposed to say that, but I'll tell you the hesitance from the regulator, because for such a platform, that's what we call an information security sharing platform, and awareness. In South Africa, we were able to work with the Reserve Bank of South Africa, Cyber One office there, and we're able to set up a threat sharing platform with them. And that one, because again, market dynamics, every market is different. It was easy for them to do it driven by the regulator. In our market, not so much. You know, the regulator is seen as the man with the big stick, and no one trusts that man. And guys were asking, so if they know, you know, I don't want to suffer the biggest penalties. So we did propose some time back even to, I think I had a presentation in the KBA for information security managers. But the thing that I'll ask is, we're ready to engage, but how can we take it up to a level where there's easier decision making and buying. But there exists the technologies to be able to carry that out. And we're ready to kickstart the conversation. We can't tire. We have to get it done. We have to get it done. We do have conversations that we need to get going. We've heard that cybersecurity is really an enabler to business. And my favorite analogy, anyone who's had me talk with, I can't run away from this analogy. And back to vehicles. If today the expressway was cleared for you completely, and you're given a Lamborghini, and you're told, jump in, everything is cleared, no bumps, nothing. And then just as you're walking in to the car, the guy says, oops, one last thing, it has no brakes. How fast will you go? When we think about brakes in a car, we think that they're there to stop us. Yet without the brakes, you lack the confidence to go really fast. Functionally, they're to stop the car. But from a purpose perspective, the reason why you have brakes is so that you can get to the full output of the car and have the assurance that you can stop as and when you need to. And that's the same thing with cybersecurity. Functionally, in cybersecurity, we have controls. But when you think about it from a purpose perspective, if you're trying to go into development, you're doing digital transformation, you want AI, you want IoT, you want to go to the cloud, you want to work with big data. If there's no security assured, you'd avoid all those technologies altogether. But if you knew that my business, my work, everything, my data will be protected because we've put in the right controls, it allows for you to accelerate your business. And that's how I want us to see cybersecurity as an enabler to business. It is the accelerator that you need so that you can get into where it is your business is trying to drive towards. And if we're able to communicate this message upwards, if we're able to communicate the message horizontally and cascade it down within organizations, we will begin to see a different approach and a different, let me call it reaction even, when it comes to our organizations. And that's the food for thought that I want to leave us with.
So today, I will be taking us just through the digital transformation in cybersecurity. What does it mean? I'm very sure everyone in this room has been to multiple conferences on digital transformation, but do you get to hear anything in relation to cybersecurity? The most you hear is, yes, we have a security team, or yes, we do audits. But we just want to take a step deeper in a 20-minute session using the cloud and DevOps as a case study. All right? So the definition of digital transformation, I want to throw this to the audience. And this is where I would like my MD to come and dissect the word digital transformation. Now, we have briefly talked about this in the previous session, but my MD has a unique way of breaking down digital transformation. And what I mean by that is digital transformation is not moving to the cloud. Digital transformation is not buying new servers. You know, there's something, it's deeper than that.
Let's take it back to where we started. We talked about technology as a fabric, right? And we saw the different evolutions. And right now, there's a lot of talk about digital transformation. And when we ask ourselves, what is this really? Does this mean, from a technology point, the third revolution was actually around what? Who knows? No, Steam was the second. No, Steam was the first of the industrial revolutions that we normally call when we talk about the 4IR. So we saw from an industry perspective, the first one, we had steam engines. All right? We started with steam. This transformed modernization of industry in a big way. All right? Then after that, we quickly went to electricity. This wasn't an evolution. Whatever was being used to work this, once we went to electricity, it became obsolete. All right? It was a complete shift. All right? And here we started seeing a lot around process modernization. From an organizational leadership or governance perspective, we started seeing now the workforce in terms of how organizational behavior and leadership is structured. All this happened during this era. All right? Manufacturing lines became faster, more efficient. Okay? Then, from there, we went into, for lack of a better word, computerization. All right. Now, after that is now where we are talking of digital transformation. But what's the difference between these two? Here is where now we started to automate processes completely and using computers to automate the processes. Okay? So we started moving away from just manual processes and we started going into automated processes in this step. Okay? And here is where now we see there's a gap between these two, which is what most people are practicing. And this is called digitalization. Okay? But just because you've done digitalization, does that mean you've gone into digital transformation? Not yet. Let me put it to you, not yet. Because now when it comes to digital transformation, here we're talking about it from disrupting, one, your business models, okay? Disrupting the organizational thinking all the way from the top, okay? And coming down. Now, some of the aspects or pillars that you'll find when you talk of digital transformation are some of the things that we talked about today, where through that disruption, and you'll hear terms like two-speed IT and so forth, but through that disruption, now you begin to adopt the use of technologies like AI and ML, cloud, big data, IoT, okay, amongst others. So digital transformation means a disruption of how business has been done, okay? Complete disruption of how business is being done. It's not just about digitalizing data or digitalizing your processes. No, it's actually disruptive all the way from the inside, from the culture going out into the technologies that you're consuming, and then driving now towards the output, which is what are the products that you are putting out and the services and why. Okay? If we look at the demands that drive for us to change this, we can see a huge change in the consumer preferences, all right? We are now dealing with a young generation, all right? A young generation that has been born into technology, okay? So their consumption is very different compared to what we have traditionally been addressing. Us guys, guys like me, millennials, we're on the last. You know, we're on our way out. I just saw someone saying that we are called fossils now, anyone who's above 40. But transformation means an actual disruption all the way from the business models. And one of the things that points as a key thing is how are you consuming some of those pillars and technologies that we call, within the digital transformation bit.
Digital transformation and cybersecurity brings a revolution of how we handle cybersecurity. If attackers are now using artificial intelligence and automation to target our businesses, does this mean we should still use manual processes to engage in our defense? All right? Prior to this industrial revolution, this new industrial revolution we find ourselves in, it was I'm going to pick a target and scan for vulnerabilities. But now in the era of digital transformation, with new services being spun up, it's pick a vulnerability and scan for all the targets. And we're going to show that today. Since attackers are now using artificial intelligence and automation, adversaries don't break in anymore. They actually log in to these services. And how do they log in? This is because when you move to the cloud, automatically your IT department turns to a service department, full-fledged application department, right? Are we familiar with the term lift and shift? So lift and shift is when, when companies or businesses are trying to move to the cloud, they just move their data centers as it is with the configurations to the cloud. But in this case, they are moving vulnerabilities as well. They are moving some irregularities as well. And this is just an example. And I'm going to start from the left to the right to go deep into how cloud turns IT into app services. So this is pre-cloud, right? You have your banking applications, your loan applications running within your environment, other IT apps, DB, emails. You have servers, you have network segmented or not segmented, MPLS, SD-WAN, vSphere hardware. You have a whole rack data center and all that. And when you're moving to the cloud, all that becomes this. You will still use open source libraries for a lot of things because open source, the world stands on open source today. There will be application code, there will be your platform apps, cloud, containers, VPC, service mesh, Kubernetes, cloud. Till today, I've not found someone who could define Kubernetes properly, right? Now, for the techies, you will laugh at that joke, but if you're not a techie, I understand, right? Now, so your IT literally turns into a DevOps service. Why? Because consumer needs are changing, right? When COVID hit, how many of us went to the banks physically? How many of us went to our service providers physically? Our apps are now gateways to that. So there was also a shift in how our infrastructure was. And what did this mean for our infrastructure? For those of us who are in the process of moving to cloud or who already moved to the cloud, it meant that APIs became the new networks and identities became the new perimeter. Because to access services, you need identities. For example, I cannot access M-Pesa without signing up for M-Pesa, right? But M-Pesa somehow integrates with CDSC. And if I wanted to transfer money to my CDS account, I can use M-Pesa. But M-Pesa integrates over APIs. So now there's the concept of third party. So CDSC has created a network link with M-Pesa. So now we see how APIs are the new networks and my identity is the new perimeter to access the link between CDSC and M-Pesa. Now, moving from pre-cloud to cloud, there are also challenges with digital transformation. There are known vulnerabilities, there are also code vulnerabilities. And research has shown that developers actually know when they are not developing securely. And recently, the Biden administration just passed a bill stating that you would be held responsible for a data breach in relation to your applications, right? So we heard of SolarWinds. You don't want to know the amount of lawsuits that they are currently facing, right? But now it's been passed into bill. What does that mean for you and I? GDPR came, and all of a sudden, everybody's number one project became data protection. So now that bill is here, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your third parties? And what does that mean for the consumers? So this is how cloud turns IP to application services. Now, when cloud turns your IT into application services, there's a new architectural demand. And I'll start from the external before I go to the internal. I made a statement, APIs are now the new networks, and identity is the new perimeter. What do I mean by that? Let's use company A. Company is a bank. And the rest, B, C, E, F, G, are third-party services. And I want to use the concept of open banking here, because open banking is heavily built on APIs, right? So these will be your partners. There are some of your partners who need to authenticate into certain services you host within your data center, all right? This will be other partners as well, B2B, who they don't necessarily need to authenticate. They just need information that consumers can get. And we also have these guys who would access you via mobile apps, B2C, right? And we have others, outbound APIs. Now let's go within your organization. Because IT service, your IT department has literally converted all business applications to services, Department A would need to talk to Department B. And sometimes Department A might need to talk to Department C. And how do they interact? Also via APIs. So if you are heavily investing on an on-premise environment and now there's a mandate to shift to the cloud, this is what your architecture is going to look like. The APIs are the networks, and identity is the perimeter. Identity represents this red, whether you're authenticated or not, because the degree into which you're authenticated would give you access to certain areas of your business. That was just the use case of cloud and what it means to digital transform. But I want to take a moment to read this. And this is from Anonymous, the hacker group. It says, if I were to advise a rogue nation state on how to take down the United States, I would tell them to start with the APIs first. I'll give another example. A few months ago, the government of Kenya decided to digitize 5,000 services, right? Now, what's the population of Kenya? 56 million? 56 million. If the government digitized 5,000 services, and identity is the new, identity is the way to authenticate into environments, how many identities do you think the government of Kenya is taking care of? Simple answer, 56 million times 5,000. Let's just do the maths, 56 million times 5,000. Someone pull out a calculator and do that, if you don't mind. So that shows, just for emphasis, the government of Kenya has built a large infrastructure, so big, and they need to handle over, I think the calculation is over 1 billion something identities. And it's going to be all APIs, right? For one government service to integrate with the other, it's APIs. And there's this statement that says, to United States that has a cyber army, that says, if I was to advise a rogue nation state on how to take down the United States, I would tell them to start with the APIs. So if you're a network manager here, or you are aware of your network operations, or you've moved to SD1 or you're using MPLS, and you're planning to digital transform, what is your strategy around APIs? Because whether you like it or not, you would definitely move there soon. And for this reason, API attacks from 2020 to 2021 jumped up by 681%. From our threat intelligence in the last 6 months, it increased for another 400%, right? Because APIs authenticate to sensitive areas in our networks. And attackers follow the path of least resistance. You've invested over $500,000 in cybersecurity, but you're also digital transforming. And someone made the mistake, a developer made the mistake to push an API out there unprotected. Instead of the attacker spending 6 months to develop a 0-day, I just probe the API. Boom, I'm in. And I have the database. All right, so what does this mean for the Kenyan landscape? Those of us who are on the digital transformation journey, utilizing a lot of cloud, what does this mean for you? It means some of the services you host would somehow be facing the public internet, or what attackers would like to call your attack surface, or defenders would like to call your defense surface, or your business surface. So this is how attackers do it. Remember I had said before, they will first scan a target. A target could be company X. then scan for vulnerabilities. But now they scan for vulnerabilities and their targets come through. I'll give an example. Ransomware. To us, ransomware is not a headache. For some reason this year, ransomware is a headache for everyone, but we've been dealing with ransomware since 2018. And the news keeps saying these are advanced persistent threats. But if you look at an incident response, these ransomware attackers are reusing the same techniques they've been using since 2018. So what makes them advanced, right? They're using automation. They're like, well, we can just use the same thing we did last year. Still nobody's going to catch us. But today I'm going to show you there are 3 ways ransomware gets into an environment. One is exploitation of public-facing assets using the protocol SMB. 2, RDP. And 3, phishing. But today we'll just talk about the 2. So for those of us who are not familiar with the concept of port 445, port 445 is SMB. SMB is used to share data across the organizations, right? This is the primary way attackers get into the environment. But in terms of IT practices, we get to see that this SMB this SMB service is facing the internet. SMB is the number 1 way attackers get into the environment. And I was just about to show you statistics of how many businesses or enterprises have SMB, right? And I didn't want to show Kenya because that would change the conversation in this room. I just wanted to hover on the statistics for Kenya. As of this morning, we had over 634 businesses that currently have SMB publicly facing. Now, if I have SMB publicly facing, what can an attacker do? That's the main question. An attacker can shut down your whole operations, can get your admin credentials, can back up your systems for you, free backup, yeah? Right? That can happen just by having that service facing the internet. I just wanted to show you, but the internet decided, oh, now it's back. All right. So, as of this moment, we have over 1.4 million SMB services facing the public internet. Now, I'm not going to go into Kenya, but I'm just going to hover on Kenya. Oh, sorry, that's Nigeria. So this morning was 634, but now it's already 670. So right now, there are over 670 businesses that are vulnerable to ransomware attacks. And the only thing you need to do is just take down that service. That's all. That's all. Now, with this, what can we do with this information? And this is why I go back to the presentation. With this, now that's information for offenders, that's the attackers. Now, what can I do as a cybersecurity analyst or business? Right now, I can tell which companies in Kenya are about to get hacked, who are currently being hacked, and who will be hacked. And this is just an example. Right now in Kenya, we have over 1,417 unique Mirai connections, botnet connections going on in Kenya. And it increases by the day. Now, as we're able to see here, this is an ISP, and this is a business. And these are the top malicious connections in Kenya. We're able to see these are SSH port scanners, SSH brute forcers, SSH worms, QNAP. Now, I'm not going to expose who they are. You can do the research by yourself. But some of these businesses do not know that they've been hit. Right? So, in the era of digital transformation, we've just briefly seen how easy it is for a business to get hit, and also how easy it is to take care of the compromise. Just turn the service off and patch the systems and other few things. But the key thing is turn the service off, right? Now, because of time, we will jump straight into the core foundations in terms of what do you do in the era of digital transformation? Now, what you do in the era of digital transformation, you focus on 7 core foundations. There are a lot of regulations. There are a lot of customer demands. There are a lot of third-party business demands. Right now, if you want to do business with a bank like KCB, they require you to do a cybersecurity audit. Right? If you want to do a business with M-Pesa, you want to connect with their APIs, to some extent they're required to do a cybersecurity audit. So businesses are saying, I need to ensure that when I'm doing a business with you, you're not going to be my weakest link, right? So GDPR has also come into play. Customers are now saying, what are you doing with my data? So with all these complexities, CISOs, COOs, heads of ITs are having challenges in terms of where do I spend the budget? Do I spend the budget on technology? Do I spend the budget on processes? Do I hire more people that I know that they'll get poached in the next 2 months, right? So we've boiled down to 7 core foundations that your business can actually take. Number 1 is culture. I believe we've greatly talked about culture today, right? What set of values are at the top when it comes to cybersecurity? And what set of values are in the organization when it comes to cybersecurity? We'll also talk about accountability, right? In 2018, there was a loan application that spun up, and 2 hours after they spun up, they shut down. What happened? They lost over 100 million shillings. How did they lose 100 million shillings? The moment they launched their app, attackers logged in and they were able to manipulate parameters in the loan application. So if I could take a loan for 20 bob, when the request is going to the server, they'd manipulate it to read 200,000 without a trace. So there was a big launch. I don't want to mention the name of the business, but there was a big launch. And imagine after such a big launch, in 2 hours, they had to shut down the application. They had lost over 100 million shillings in less than 2 hours. This is what cybersecurity means in digital transformation, right? So when investigations were done and the developer who made the input parameters was asked, how would you allow this to go into production? The response was, I am accountable for security, but I'm not responsible. So in today's world, should we make our developers responsible for security? Right? Because if now the Biden administration is saying your business would be held accountable for compromises in relation to your customers, and now you have customers as far as US, EU customers, Saudi Arabia, you will be faced with different regulations. What does that mean for your business? Now let's talk of measurement. Security programs have been set, but there are no ways to show improvement or maturity. And the best way to show maturity in your security program is through KPIs. Are you able to identify what is the return on security investment on this firewall you bought, of this endpoint security you bought? Is it saving me time? Is it saving me money? Do we have the effective processes, the updated processes? I remember back in 2018 when I was one of the first responders for ransomware. Right then, the CA did not have ways to tackle ransomware. Even NIST did not have ways to tackle ransomware. I had to come up with mine. And so if today you download a NIST paper, you would have some good things. But malware keeps on changing, right? So how do you ensure that you have the updated process or proactive process? Now this brings us to resources and automation. Attackers are now using AI. Attackers are now using automation. For those of us who have web application firewalls, do this test when you get back to your offices with your marketing team. Run an advert and check on your WAF if your cybersecurity attacks have not triple-fold. Just a test. Now, once you run an advert, you would realize that even Chinese actors will start scanning you. But if you go deeper into that, you will realize that it's bots. Bots will start scanning your website for vulnerabilities and try to exploit them as they go. So if attackers are using automation and AI, what are you doing about it? Do you have an XDR strategy to integrate your endpoint, network, email, cloud, so that you have 1 or 2 panes of glass to detect and respond? Do you have automated playbooks as well? And lastly, strategy, right? Sun Tzu quotes, the most skillful fighter fights a battle without having to go physically. That's just me paraphrasing, right? The most skillful fighter fights a battle wins a battle without going to the battlefront. So what strategy do you have against these threat actors? If today you've learned that threat actors are using automation, when I look into your investment, your resources, have you embedded automation? All right. Today you've learned that it just takes one service to be up for an attacker to get through the network. Do you have an attack surface management solution or a threat intelligence program to determine what are my attack surfaces? And if there's a drift away from the baseline. And this brings me to the end of my presentation with a step further into how we can protect the business. So we've talked a lot about culture today. We've talked a lot about how the fabrics of technology can be greatly affected by culture. And the failure of technology comes from bad practices. So if you do not train your team, or if you're not aware of the full capabilities of your strategy or your tools or your services, you will not get the full exponential outcome of whatever you choose to invest in. So for this, a step further, what is our value add to you? Today, as we wrap up today, one of the things we're giving out today for free for everyone in this room, okay, not necessarily for free, but for a discount, is if you would like to start your security awareness program or governance program on your culture, we are offering a 20% off on that training, right? And we are also offering a 40-minute session for free with your board of directors for those of us who have challenges talking to the board about cybersecurity. Because once the board understands cybersecurity, budget is not a problem. Right. I was speaking to one of the businesses that got hacked recently, and they told me their cybersecurity budget jumped up by 5. No discussions, by 5. All right. But do we need to wait for a cyber attack for that to happen? No, we don't. So the first step is awareness, and we're offering that. 2, building your threat intelligence program from zero. Do you want to know about what these attackers are doing? Do you want to set up a proactive response to threats? We are offering a program that would help you build your own business threat intelligence program so that you stay a step ahead or 2 steps ahead. And this comes with training, and this also comes with tools you already have. This program, you're not buying anything extra. Tools you already have. DevSecOps and cloud security strategy sessions. Now, we're offering this, and for the cost, you can please meet Emmy after the meeting. In our DevSecOps and strategy session, we train your engineers through secure coding. And at the end of the day, you have a score of all your DevOps engineers and which of your DevOps engineers need training on security. Right? We talked about the Biden bill that just passed. Right. So to reduce your risk landscape, you need to ensure that your engineers are training securely. Right. So we call that coding tournaments, which Emmy can share later after if you would like to discuss. And cloud security sessions. We just talked about how easy it is to compromise cloud environments. We hold strategy sessions, vendor agnostic, where it's just you, us, and the board. And you're going to tell us what is your 5-year plan, and we're going to draft a proactive cybersecurity strategy for you on the board. SASE strategy, which includes ZTNA and XDR. SASE has been flown left, right, and center. The concept of SASE, the definition of SASE, I'm sure we've been to multiple conferences about this. Right? So how do we ensure that in the age where identity is the new perimeter, and APIs are the new networks, we have a secure access service edge to provide our services, right? And a zero trust architecture with an XDR operation. And thank you for listening. And please, I would like to take questions from you. Asante sana.
I know we're a bit pressed on time. We had committed to release you by 10:30. So if there's really a pressing question, or if there's none, or something that you want to think about and ask later, you can always reach us. I don't know if my details can be shared there, but I'll provide a card for everyone, and you can always just feel free to shoot an email, WhatsApp, call, and we'll respond to you as soon as possible. But with that, I just want to wrap up today's session. Thank you so much for making this an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the discussions. Thank you for your inputs, really. You guys were the presenters today, and you were the stars of the day. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at more and more of these events. But also we look forward to coming to visit with you at your places so that we can get into some more specific details and we can plan out very concrete ways forward and help us also to understand you and your businesses better and your objectives. So from Cyber One, I just want to extend my gratitude, our gratitude, and say thank you for gracing us with your time. And wish you a lovely Friday ahead and a good weekend. Thank you.